everyone, today we are going to be talking Days of Thunder, the Tom Cruise, Tony Scott directed classic from 1990, and let's talk. So to give you guys a little background on me, I am a huge NASCAR fan, and even though we don't talk NASCAR on this channel, I figured with the Daytona 500 coming up, it was no better time than to talk about one of my favorite movies, even though as cheesy and corny as it is Days of Thunder. Now, this has been called Top Gun on Wheels, which is very true because it is a Jerry Bruckheimer, Don Simpson, Tony Scott directed movie. So Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer are the producers, and Tony Scott directed it. And it feels very, 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 very much like Top Gun, right down to Tom Cruise starring in it as Cole Trickle. But I have always liked Days of Thunder way more than Top Gun. I don't know if that's the NASCAR fan speaking in me, or I just love Robert Duvall's character, or I love Randy Quaid's character. I love the fact that I get to see John C. Reilly in another NASCAR movie before Talladega Nights. So it's just like little things like that. You know, I kind of found this movie around the same time I started falling for NASCAR in the early 2000s, so it might have just all lined up. But either way, or I just love this movie. It is so much fun. The dialogue is ridiculous. Like, you know, people see Michael Rooker now in the Guardians of the Galaxy's movies or all of James Gunn's movies, but Michael Rooker to me will always be Rowdy Burns, who plays an amazing character but a great arc. You know, they start him off as the main villain, but then he ends up forming a friendship with Tom Cruise after they both get injured and have that amazing, I know this is probably what most people remember from Days of Thunder, that amazing rental car scene where they just destroy him and then they say, "Too close to call?" Yep. So you get a lot of like great little things like that. And for all my NASCAR fans out there, I'm sure if you haven't seen this movie, but you probably know of Tim Richmond and Harry Hyde, who are based on, and I know you know Rick Hendrick, who actually supplied the cars for this movie. And City Chevrolet is actually Rick Hendrick's owned Chevy dealer in North Carolina. But Tom Cruise's character is based a lot on Tim Richmond, and Harry Hogg, played by Robert Duvall, is based on the crew chief of Harry Hyde. So Tim Richmond tragically died of AIDS in the late 80s, but a lot of their time at Rick Hendrick is in this movie. And that's what they're kind of portraying, but a very sped up version, because Tim Richmond did win a lot of races in a short amount of time that he raced for Rick Hendricks. And in this movie, that is actually one of the big flaws as a NASCAR fan. I mean, I know what you're saying, like, come on. Like, how could you have a flaw with this movie? It's like, you know, it's cheesy on purpose. And I get that completely. But my problem is, as a NASCAR fan, I have to defy my belief that this man went from, in one season alone, he started the year late, then he couldn't figure it out, and then by Darlington he's winning races, then by July he's hurt, and then by the next season he's won the Daytona 500. All within a 1 year span. It's too hard to believe, but I easily could take myself out of that because I just still love this movie. That's just me having seen the movie 150 times. But if you haven't, totally understand why or if you're not even a NASCAR fan, you just want to watch a fun movie, totally understand why you wouldn't notice those little details, but they have bugged me for like the last 20 years just because I can't help myself, so I had to point them out in this video. So those are my only flaws with this, but without that, I wouldn't have ever heard the term "rubbing son is racing." You know, Robert Duvall is amazing in this movie. Tom Cruise, this is my favorite Tom Cruise movie. Obviously, totally a biased opinion. It is definitely not the best Tom Cruise movie, but it is my favorite because I love Cole Trickle. It's just so fun. The racing scenes are amazing. They're shot and done very well. I'll get more into that when we get to the 4K review. But overall, as far as a movie, this one is a lot of fun. It is a well-made movie. Tony Scott is a very underrated director. Obviously, he always gets overshadowed by his brother Ridley Scott, you know, the director of Alien and Blade Runner. But Tony Scott had quite a run for himself. This is the same guy who directed Top Gun, as I have already stated. He directed True Romance, Enemy of the State, Man on Fire, The Last Boy Scout. This guy had quite a run, and I really do enjoy Tony Scott movies, so I would really recommend Days of Thunder highly. So I would give Days of Thunder an 8 out of 10. So I bought this 4K Blu-ray of Days of Thunder last year, and I was pretty disappointed to see that this isn't getting the love that it deserves, because I actually do believe this is one of the biggest jumps from Blu-ray to 4K that I've ever seen. And Days of Thunder has had a high rise from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to 4K. A lot of the scenes I have noticed, this actually might hurt the film in certain ways, because in the early scenes when you first see Cole Trickles he arrives and the sun is either clearly setting at Charlotte Motor Speedway, but then when you shift back to certain scenes when they're sitting on pit road, it is clearly a cloudy day, or then in the middle of the afternoon, so you can tell that they shot this over different days, but the way they cut it together, you can tell the different weather and the different times of day, which I never noticed until we got to the 4K Blu-ray, so that should really tell you the power of the 4K Blu-ray, of the technology, is really showing us how they filmed it, but it also could hurt it in the sense if you need to have that continuity. There's some continuity errors that are very noticeable because of the technology actually making it more noticeable. But then we also get to the fact that now the 4K and the HDR is making everything pop. All the color, the sunny days really shine. Like, I was noticing the sun reflecting off of Rowdy Burns' fire suit. The fire suits have never looked clearer. The 4K resolution really makes everything pop. The HDR makes everything pop. But where this movie really shines, and I was surprised to find out it didn't have a Dolby Atmos track. It's actually just a Dolby 5.1. Because this was blowing my speakers to pieces with how loud the racing scenes were. I can't say a bad thing about the racing scenes at all. They are the way the music is just powering over your speakers with the sounds of the engines. It's crazy. I definitely give the audio on this a very high score. And another thing is, you might not realize, Hans Zimmer did the score on this. The same guy who did the Dark Knight trilogy and most of Christopher Nolan's movies. But he doesn't get, no one ever talks about this score. Even him, he's kind of embarrassed about it because it's a Sith-heavy score. But as a big 80s fan and a fan of Sith-heavy scores, I love this. I wish there was a soundtrack that featured this on it, but there isn't.
I always get Hans Zimmer confused with the guy from Die Hard.
Hans Gruber?
Yeah.
Hans, Booby. Yeah, hey, Hans, listen, Hans, I'm telling you, put out this score. I love it. I'll tell everyone about it. I love the score for this movie. It's phenomenal. I'm inspired to go out and race, and I know that I will probably get one lap in and crash and burn, but I don't care. Great score, Hans, and it's very underrated. So, as far as a 4K Blu-ray, I can't recommend this enough. It is totally underrated. If you're a fan of racing movies, Tony Scott movies, Tom Cruise movies, make sure you run out and you grab this one, because this is a 10 out of 10 4K Blu-ray for me. And as always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and you tell all your friends.